do the introduction.
I will do that. There. Today we're going to talk about one of the newer terms in dating. It's LIAT, living apart together.
Mm-hmm.
So I hope you will learn something from it and maybe decide it's an option for you, or at least not be disapproving of people who are partaking of it, right?
Indeed. Yes.
So this is the new streamingnetwork.com, WGSN-DB, going solo network, radio, TV, and podcast, #1 internet singles top network. And this is Let's Talk Dating with Christine and Barry. Hi, Barry.
Hi, Christine. Yeah, this is an interesting topic because the thing is that there's so much tradition we have built into our dating and relating experience that in some ways this is such a like swimming upstream in a way, or doing things differently. So we're going to dive in and explain this in more detail and share how it can work.
For certain. And it was interesting because when I moved back to my condo, because I had been here for 10 years and then I married Tony and then he died. So then I came back and I had a new neighbor and we got chatting and she talked about how she had gone to this class to learn how to use a computer, and she and the teacher fell in love with each other and they ultimately got engaged, and they have continued, as they live 4 miles apart, to live in their separate houses. And she didn't even know at that point it was actually called living apart together. And she said people were like, what? How often do you see each other? Do you really love each other? I don't understand. They had lots of questions about it. So that was 8.5 years ago. So I think people still have a lot of questions about it.
Yeah, well, I mean, traditional values, of course, most people know about, of course, is where people will get together, they get married, they come under one roof, and they share a family dynamic. And of course, in a lot of instances, this was when people were younger and they were going to have a family. So having one house to have the family raised in makes a lot of sense. Mm-hmm. But for those of people who've been through raising family, been divorced, empty nesting, that sort of thing, and now divorced or widowed and looking for a new relationship, it's like the landscape's changed in terms of what you need. And also because you probably established your own space, your own environment too. And so if you both have that, it's not always the thing where it's like, okay, you go at your place. No, you go at your place. And this becomes a real quandary. So having the space we can choose to say, you know what, we can maintain our own spaces. That way we have our own thing. I mean, sidebar for a second. I know also couples who basically have separate bedrooms in the same house, where they live in the same house, the separate bedrooms where they come together, where they want to have sex and intimacy and all sort of fun play type things, but enjoy their own space to sleep in for their own peace and quiet. So there's benefits to this that people may not realize.
Mm-hmm. So many variety of ways for people to approach it. So when I asked my neighbor, I said, what's encouraged you to do that? And she said, well, financially, it wasn't a problem. They both of her condo and his freestanding house were paid for, so it wasn't a financial burden. And she says, I like my furniture better. So I like visiting my furniture.
Whatever it takes.
They're both widowed, and he has lots of big antiques that his late wife liked, and it's not her style, and she's very happy to be there, but she really likes coming home, and then he likes coming to her house too, and then they go back and forth. So it's really worked well for them. And she says, there's days when we just need a break. And boy, aren't there people like that? I remember, I'm a big Sex and the City series fan, and I remember that she had got in a relationship and moved to France, and she sublet out her apartment. And when she came back, she ended up going back with the guy that she'd been with forever, but she kept her apartment for her friends and for her. If anybody needed a break, they could go there just for an afternoon or a whole day, or they could spend the night. And it helped them just go back to their life feeling more energized and more excited because some of them had like 2 little kids, and it was a really nice break. So that is another reason to do it, that you can have because I like having a man in my life who travels a little, not a lot, but a little, because I like having the house to myself. So that's another quirky way to do it if you're living in the same household. But this way, if you have a separate house, you can just go, I'm going to go spend time at this would be like the East house, and he lives in the West house.
But another part of it also is one of the things I'm aware of, based on my own experience, frankly, is there's a certain comfort level, but almost laziness when you're with somebody and you're sharing the house with them. There's like for men, I think especially, there's a sense like we've got the goal because we've got the girl or the woman, and we don't have to do anything now because she's there. It's like, oh, it's easy now. And so having that distance in between, for me, the idea is that there's an excitement, there's an anticipation because you haven't seen each other for half a day or a day, whatever it's been, if it's been a week. And so that keeps the spark alive and the courtship alive by having the separate spaces. So in fact, it can be a much more exciting thing to have your relationship set up where you do have separate houses, even though you may be fully committed and dedicated and living on as a couple. But you have the space to simply go, oh, it's exciting. I get to go spend time at my partner's place for a change or whatever that is, you know?
I think it's really a good piece to acknowledge that it can help keep a little spark, that you feel like you're actually having a date, because you really should date your spouse. I think that that's a really good plan. The other thing I've heard from, I know now so many couples that have this arrangement is, there's then when you say I really need a night to myself, then the guys could have cigar smoking poker night and not feel like they have to be concerned, because they are concerned if they're going to make too much noise or the smoke might bother us. And so now ladies can go to our house and I've had women who tell me, oh, they have like facial parties with their girlfriends or mani-pedis or get massages and that way it's not like people say, well, you're supposed to be able to just be yourself around your person. Yes. And not always. So a little bit I'm just going to add this because it doesn't really fit this, but it does a little. So I grew up in a family where the bathroom doors were never shut. I don't care what anybody was doing in there. I just was raised that way. So it seemed normal to me till I got out in the world and learned I needed to shut the door at other people's houses. And then I married somebody the first time like that. We just have conversations, whoever. But I second time married a man who went, no. So this way you think, oh, we have different sensibilities. There's things that would give us a little relaxation to be in it. So then I'd lived alone for a long time and I never closed my bathroom door. So then I go to this house where there's a teenager and a man who like having their bathroom door shut when they're in there or when I'm in there. So it was kind of nice to come back and go, I don't have to care about having my door shut.
Well, it makes sense though, also because things what you're used to, what you get comfortable with. And that's how the thing about dating is, you're comfortable and the other person's comfortable with how they fit together. And so having that separate space literally maintain some of that without any stress level showing up, and you can have ease. And also, when you go visit their place, you tend to put the same, respect in place you would to visiting another friend or another place you were going to. So, it can be definitely an interesting part of the conversation.
So I've asked them too, because I have not done this yet. I'm very intrigued by it. I said, so do you feel like a guest? How relaxed do you feel on a scale of 1 to 10? And they really had to think about it. And the majority, not all, but the majority went, no, because it still feels like my other house. Because they do add their things if you're in a committed relationship, and theirs has been 10 years. This is not going to get married because of financial reasons, but she has a ring and they're very committed. That they both feel very at home at the other person's house because they have brought things and, they don't have to cart, because that's the other thing. If you have to cart stuff back and forth, it might not feel as at home. And I think the ones who feel a little more like a guest, I said, well, do you like carting stuff back and forth? And they said, yeah, it really is my choice. They've made drawers and closet space, but they like carting stuff back and forth. So whatever's working for you. So to know that's an option too. How much stuff, how much room do you need at the other person's house to make it feel like you're not a guest? And then how much do you like? We all know I bring lots of stuff wherever I go. So I'm sure I'd be still carting stuff back and forth because that's just me. It's my calling card. But I think it's really important to think about, well, how would I feel comfortable? And do they feel comfortable the same way?
Yeah. And also it obviously depends on your lifestyle and what you need to do as well. Because, for example, having set up like doing a podcast, having the equipment to do the podcast, I've got set up where I'm pretty mobile with. I can take it with me wherever I go because I'm working with a laptop and I got, I can move everything with me. So I could in fact do that in different locations if I chose to. But having, if you have a studio space, if you're a musician or something else, it's a different story. So those sort of setups can be something harder to move, something that easier to move. So you got to really plan, if you're doing a relationship, how do you want those things to fit together? And, just entertain the idea about if you do choose to live separately. Now, of course, if you're both renting places, a different story. But if you're both own your places outright, maybe it is a good thing saying, well, right now the market's really good, so let's sell one of the houses so we can make some money and live together and enjoy the other house. It's one thing. But otherwise, having the freedom to have your own space, it's, frankly, I think for a lot of relationships, it's a good thing to have that space, because when you're living on top of each other in a space, especially when it's not that big, and you both are working from home or just not retired, it can be wearing on you if you don't really do the work to be good partners, in which case having the outs to go, quote, home to your own space can save them a relationship big time.
I think so. I mean, I'm a big fan of people going sometimes on separate vacations, because you have an interest in the other person. They tried it. They really tried. They went, yeah, not me. Have a great time. Go off with your friends and do whatever it is you do. I don't want to do that. So this is another way of, you want to, watch a bunch of stuff on TV, or you want to do something that I don't want to participate in, but should I really have to leave the house? And so having another space, how fortunate is that?
Yeah. It's funny because we did an episode months ago now about long distance relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of the same scenario in a way, because you both have your own house. But we're talking about really living apart together, which could be like, the house down the street from the one you're in. So it doesn't have to be that far apart. But the same premise, in a way, lands, because it is having your autonomy in your own space and being the host in your own house. And like you're saying earlier about, having a closet or a drawer or some space in the other house for your own stuff, that still, in a sense, implies that you're visiting. And so it can be a place where you choose to have that living apart together idea, where you do, like you were courting before you got into a long-term relationship, that you basically did spend time visiting back and forth to each other's places.
Mm-hmm.
So how you do that, the internal process of how you bring yourself to that relationship can really make a difference for how that relationship functions. And so, again, as I mentioned, it's like the idea being in courtship and in playfulness and in the excitement of being together because you've been away for a little while. There's a lot of pluses to it. And there are minuses too, as we said.
So bringing up the long distance relationships, because lots of people, oh my gosh, I could never do that. I want it. First, the big complaint is I want to be able to just call up and go to the movies, or call up and go to dinner. Well, I know people in long distance relationships that do that. They watch the same movie at the same time and talk. One of the cool things then is you can pause it and have a conversation without disturbing everybody else at the theater. You can cook together. You can have dinner together. Yes, you're not in the same physical space. And if it's worth it to you. So here's a way of looking at a viable way to have a long distance relationship, because you really are living apart together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the thing. It's like even for simple things like, when one of you gets sick, you don't have to worry about bugging the other person by like, okay, now you got quarantine. If you're in separate houses, you have that space to do that. During COVID, that's one of those things where some people had to bat down the hatches together, which meant that the second person was likely to catch what the first person had. Yeah. So in a sense, this is obviously the extreme case, but the idea of having your own space to be in, so you can spend your time being in recovery, is a nice way of putting it, because that's the thing, is the journey in relationships is not usually a straight line, like parallel together all the way through. For most people, relationships does have variance along the way. And so if you are with someone who's going through their own changes, you're going through your own changes, that extra bonus, and I call it a bonus, for having another space to be in, can really support the relationship being its full expression and being much healthier, much happier, and much easier.
I think I've met two couples that were attached to the hip, really liked being together all the time. It worked for both of them. Good thing they met each other, because it wouldn't for everybody else. So for the people who don't want to be together all the time, it's a really nice option of, I'm going to go sleep at my house tonight, or I'm going to go sleep at my house tonight, or I'm, going to go there for a couple days. And so now we're going to talk about how you need to keep communicating, how you feel safe and secure and you trust them. Because before you enter in this relationship, all the conversations that we're going to suggest you need to have, and you don't stop having them. Because I think I mentioned that I had done 4 weddings for this one family. And when I first met the parents, at that point, been married for 40 years, and they said, you know what we do every wedding anniversary? We get up and we say, do you want to do this another year? Yep. Okay. Do you want to do this another year? And they would think about it during the year that they're going to have to answer that question. So staying really current, especially if you're in two separate households, whether it's, a block from each other or a plane ride away, to continuing having that conversation about, is this still working for you? Is it still working for me? And if there's something we need to talk about, we're going to talk about it right now and not let it just build up and be a big thing. Because I think that's a big worry of people.
Yeah. But also it comes down to the things like the fact that if you're living together, it's easier to have that sense of monogamy and loyalty and that sort of thing too.
Yeah.
Whereas if you live separate places, you got to have a sense of trust as well, because that's one of those things where I can say this, imagine the container you have in the relationship includes both houses. That's one, that's clear. But if you're visiting your partner who lives somewhere else, especially if it's a long distance one, like we talked about in another episode, the commitment to each other, how strong is that, independent of not being together all the time?
And I'll tell you, I hear people concerned that aren't in long distance or even close living apart together. The people that aren't in them seem to have way more concern than the people that are in them.
Mm-hmm.
And what they tell me is, well, we've personally experienced, or we know lots of people that are living in the same house, and there's not always monogamy happening, even though it had been an agreement. So just the extra element of that you're not in the same house, no matter how close or far, doesn't guarantee that it will or won't. And it was funny how they said, I've never been concerned. We have conversations all the time about, are you still okay? Is there anything else you need? Are you getting enough from me? Am I getting enough from? And they seem to have the conversation more regularly, more openly. So my personal experience from asking other people that are in it is there's not a lot of cheating, not a lot of not being honest and open and being committed in their relationship. It's been kind of an interesting experiment to ask people. Yeah, because you'd think that's why other people are concerned.
How do you say it? Yeah, I'm trying to get a response to that, but I'm just realizing time-wise, I think we should probably do a little in mid-show promotional stuff before the commercial break, and we'll come back and talk about it afterwards, so we can get caught up, because my mind's processing something and I don't have the answer right now. So
good job. So if any of this is resonating with you and you'd like to talk to Barry or I, a really great way to reach me is through all of my social media. So if you go to my website, which is www.theperfectcatch.com, and scroll down to the bottom, you'll see all my social media icons of Facebook and LinkedIn and YouTube and Pinterest and Instagram and YouTube, where you can see all the replays of this. And tell people how to find your social media, Barry.
Absolutely. Well, the good thing for anybody looking for me is because my name is my website, but it's also my social media as well. And yes, on my website are all the links to my social media. But if you're looking for me on YouTube or anywhere else, just look for Barry Selby on YouTube or Facebook, Pinterest, etc. LinkedIn, etc. Those sort of places. YouTube, I have tons of videos. Besides our podcast, I have probably over 1,500 videos as well from other things I've done. So if you want a lot of content, definitely follow me on YouTube. And just a sidebar, in Instagram and Threads, it's the real Barry Selby, but everywhere else you can find me as Barry Selby. So yeah, our stuff is out there. We'll talk about how you reach us and work with us later in the episode, but just want to let you know that social media wise, we're all over the place.
And really, both of us have, besides our podcasts on our separate YouTube channels, we have lots of other things that we've recorded on our own that have lots of information, as well as the over 220 we've done together.
Indeed, absolutely. So we're going to take a ladies first, you go.
Our minds always think so alike. I like that. So we're going to take a commercial break for this lovely station that we're broadcasting from, and then we'll be right back to talk about living apart together.
See you in a minute.
Thanks. Hi, we're back with Let's Talk Dating with Christine and Barry, and today we're talking about one of the newer acronyms on dating, LAT, part together.
Hmm.
I guess sometimes it can be acrimonious if you do that acronym, but we're talking about how to do it smoothly, right?
Indeed, we are. Yeah, yeah. So the thing about this, as we said, it's interesting because, in a way, the way I framed it earlier is it's almost like this courtship process that doesn't end. Because a lot of times in the courtship journey, especially if you meet each other, you're living in different places, you're visiting each other and flirting with each other and going out together. And even though you're in a relationship now, you can maintain that same energetic, which is why I think it's much more like keeping the energy fresh and happy in a relationship by having two separate places. It can really be additive to the relationship.
So our lovely mentor that we love citing all the time is Allison Armstrong.
Hmm.
Has her husband passed away, and she now been in a relationship for a little while, and they lived an airplane ride away. And he bought a house a mile from hers because she said, "I don't want to live together, but I'm happy to be in a relationship with you." So he said, "Okay, well, this way we can walk back and forth instead of flying back and forth." I thought that was
Yeah.
very gentlemanly of him.
And it really sets things up in a nice way because because that's the other part too. And I'll say this for those, even though I'm not widowed, but I understand people who've been in that relationship, is if you've been in a long-term marriage for 25, 30 years or 40 years and your partner's passed away, the house you're in may still have a lot of memories about that person. So it can be really challenging to bring somebody else new into that space. And it may take some time. So by having a relationship where you're living apart, you can slowly but surely just change the energetic of the house. I mean, eventually you may decide it doesn't work to stay there. You may just have to move out yourself. But at least initially in that relationship that you're with that person, you don't suddenly bring the new person on top of the energy of your dearly departed partner. So that can be a smart way to do things just for your own emotional well-being.
And theirs too, because a lot of divorced people have a concern about pictures and memorabilia that belong to them or the two of you. And I certainly suggest paring them down and not having any obvious things in the bedroom.
Yeah.
And certainly not getting rid of them all, especially if you have children, because you want pictures of them with the children. And so it could make it easier, maybe a little more comfortable for both people to
Hmm.
say, I know that we're sharing these two places together. I feel very a part of both places. And you get to decorate it a little more in your style, whatever that is. And you get to decorate yours a little more in your style. And I'm always fascinated, to visit other people's houses and see how they live and hear about the things that they have in their house and where they came from. And I think it keeps a little extra spice and spark where you've not lived there, and so there's everything's interesting, everything's new, and it gives you even more fodder to ask more questions.
Speaking of that little thing about decoration as well, it's like the idea of how a man's house might be versus a woman's house can make a difference too. Because like the man wants his man cave. In the shed, in one house where you're together, it's one thing. But if you have your own space separately,
Yeah.
she can have her frou-frou stuff and all the pretty stuff in her house, and you can have the really manly stuff in the other house.
Mhm.
And then, frankly, it can be really good energetically speaking, because when you walk into the other person's house, you feel their energy completely, and so you actually then realize how much you can appreciate them as a fullness, because it's not just who they are, but how they express in their own home. So when you walk into the other person's space, there's, I think, an up leveling of the interest and the curiosity and the intrigue. And so again, back to the flirtatiousness and the courtship energy, it really does add value to that because you find yourself really connected to each other.
And you can learn a lot about another person, how they decorate, how
Mhm.
they organize, what are the spaces that are the most important to them. The one thing I can't do is dirty, filthy. I can do mess, but
Yeah.
I have trouble with dirty, filthy. So that would be too hard. But as long as it's not that. And also, I have to tell you, I was thinking some of the men's houses I've been into, they have really cool kitchens and all these interesting appliances and accessories that I didn't even know were out there, or I've been
Yeah.
lusting after when I got to try them. And then the
I
other thing that I so know is hard, and I actually entered 2 emails lately about we're moving in together and we all have a lot of stuff. And I went, I feel your pain. And it was hard. It was hard for both of us because we both had a lot of stuff. And to pare down So, okay, do it. If that's your goal, go through that. And so I talked through all the steps that I'd done. And if you don't have to, it's kind of a relief, especially at this age, except it is kind of a forced thing that you want to kind of downsize for your poor family when you don't wake up one day. But it's hard when you have your own special collections and things.
Hmm.
It's kind of a nice out that you don't have to do it right now this minute because you're in
Oh,
love.
yeah. But it's interesting that I think the kitchen for a second, 'cause I know that's one of my things, is having what I love, my appliances, my tools, nice set of knives I love in the kitchen, good pans and pots of pans. So there's important things in kitchens. And if my partner, which I'm not in a relationship now, just to be transparent, but if my partner doesn't have that need or that desire, I might, and we are in a committed relationship, I might put duplicate stuff of what I have in her place. So I feel comfortable cooking and being in that place as well, because it's like, I want to have some things that make my life easier when I'm there as well, just to be transparent.
That's happened in my life, that when they wanted to cook at my house, somehow from Amazon overnight came this thing that they wanted to use at their house.
Right.
I said, "Oh, you don't want to cart it back and forth?" No, I'll just make sure it's at your house.
Yeah. Makes sense.
So that's kind of fun. And I have, I like a really nice bed and really nice sheets. So I'll go, "So you felt mine. You like those? Can we get some of those for your house too?" So
See?
that's kind of fun that you can have these
Yeah.
fun, playful conversations.
Right. And basically what you do is you're bringing your own values, but it adds to the other person's place. And so in a way, what you're doing is you're creating two spaces, but it's also how you really are bringing your own energy into each other's places, which is a wonderful gift as well.
I like that way of putting it. We bring our energy to each other's houses, especially when you're spending part of your living time there. Because
Yeah.
that's one of the things that never happened to me in that whole long time I was single between my marriages. I'd spend week, often weekends for sure, at somebody's house. I mean, we went on vacation, but
Yeah.
not at their house. But a couple times I spent a whole week. But I never lived with somebody until I got married to Tony. It wasn't a moral thing. It just, they were not my people I could live with, and I liked my house better. And they'd come stay here. But when I picture, because I've thought about this since we were going to talk about it, if I kept a separate house, what things I'd need there, what things they would need here, so that we would both feel equally comfortable, that it equally is ours too.
Exactly.
So the other thing that came up on Facebook this week is there's a woman that wanted to do a test. They'd gone on a very extended vacation. I think it was like 6 weeks, and they did okay. So then she said, "Well, why don't you move into my house for 6 months? Because we'll really see because on vacation, it's pretty not
Yeah.
realistic. So now we're going to be in the same 4 walls for 6 whole
Hmm.
months." And they were going back and forth about, he said he's happy to pay all the utilities, not even half. He's going to pay all the utilities, all, garbage, water, but internet. But she wanted him to pay rent on top of it. And there was this whole conversation about, well, really? And wouldn't you have to make the payment anyway? And isn't he making up for all the stuff he would pay money for? So that's the other thing. I mean, if you're going to spend equal times in each other's houses, does it even out? Is one person's house really huge and the other one is small? Because people think, what do we have to talk about ahead of time? There's a lot.
Yeah.
Because then you get in the middle of it and going, holy crap, we didn't talk about this.
And the thing is, having those agreements and clarity up front is so key, because it's like any part of a relationship. If you don't know what you're walking into, you can be suddenly surprised and blindsided by things you didn't plan on. So yeah, having an advanced conversation and thinking ahead and being rational in conversation, absolutely smart move to do, especially if you're looking at living in your own different places.
Oh, yeah. Because you don't know what you don't know. So
Hmm.
certainly talking about, I get up before the sun and I don't. So how will we work out the quiet and that you could still do your thing on the times that we're together? Because I'd like to wake up with you, but how do we work this out if we're so different? So then it's kind of a relief when
Hmm.
they're not there and getting up before dawn, and you're not there when they're getting up, and you could be all noisy. So it's
Right.
that kind of thing to talk about, and then think about how many days, as an experiment, how many days a week do we want to spend at where? And then
Hmm.
let's just experiment with how many days a week. So there's a woman on one of my Zoom groups the other day. She said, Sunday and Wednesday, don't call, don't text, don't come over. I need those days off because they go back and forth. She said, I can't do Sunday or Wednesday with you. Not going there, not coming here. And she says, and the only reason you're allowed to text is if you have some great plan that I'd want to do the next day after we're not seeing each other. But that's it. And it's so funny because they live, I don't know, just miles apart. And so, but she said, because he wants to see every day back and forth. And she's like, no, I need 2 days off. So she was really pleased after it came up that it happened. She wasn't comfortable, that she needed to finally say this. So Bear and I are just going to be telling you the kind of stuff. Make a list of, if you're thinking about doing this, what do you need to talk about? And then be flexible. You try it for a month. Did it work? Did it not? What would you like different? What would you like more of or less of? Because otherwise you get there and you're like, holy crap, I had no idea.
Oh yeah. I mean, back to fundamental truths, do more what works, do less of what doesn't work, and know the difference. And it's that idea about in a relationship, you're exploring this. So you don't like up front say, this is the plan, we're going to live by the plan and die by the plan. It's like, no, have clarity of what you want to see how it works. And yes, discuss before you do this, how you make it work. And then you go along, so like, okay, let's course correct, let's tweak this bit, let's adjust that part, let's change your schedule a little bit. And so having that conversation, because as we said before in many episodes, conscious conversation in the relationship is important anyway. But if you are spending time together, living apart and together, the understanding of how to communicate and really share what's working, what's not working, so you can course correct, like the status of a relationship, same thing, is you want to keep maintaining conversation and that communication back and forward so that you can say, this is going to work better if we do this instead versus what we've done in the past. And so you keep learning and growing.
So I'm going to say back something you just said that I loved. Do more of what works and less of what doesn't work. That should be on a t-shirt somewhere.
It's a quote from somewhere. I didn't quote it or start it up. It came from somewhere else.
It sure sounds so simple, isn't it? And yet we don't.
Yeah.
Very
often. Oh, absolutely.
But to really assess what is happening smoothly, what do I like? What do I want more of? And yeah, that's not working for me at all. Let's talk about how this could work for you. Because I've dated, I don't know, I get people that cook and are musicians. And I usually really like hearing them play. Some of the practicing can get really old. So it's kind of nice if they do their practicing in another spot, or they warn me so I cannot be there. So that's another thing to think, the part that keeps you upright, the things that you have to do in your life to keep yourself sane. And how does the other person feel about it? And what do they need to do to keep themselves sane when you're doing the things that keep you sane? I mean, there's so many things to talk about before and during.
Absolutely. And that's the thing about this experience, is that it isn't going to be perfect from the get-go, let's put it that way. That the chance to make mistakes are rife, opportunities. So going into it, and as again, it's like I have separate places, is one of the things that can also be the place is that I remember when I used to date a long time ago, when I had to have women over, I'd always like to clean up the place special for them. Whereas on mine, I get lazy. It's like, well, that's something you may need to do ongoing for your committed relationship, where you're going to spend time together more than once a week, is to make sure your place is in good shape for the person coming over. It sounds so simplistic, but it might change your personal habits, might be uplifted by your partnership.
Your house might be cleaner and neater more often, huh? You have a girlfriend that she says, what's the point of cleaning my house if people are not coming? They entertain a lot, but she says, I just wait until I know somebody's coming over. She's doing lots of very fun things in her life, and that is not fun for her at all. But I do relate to that about, throwing things under the bed or in the closet because somebody's coming over. Generally, nobody uses the bathroom that I use. So there's time. It's generally pretty neat, but there's times when I'm running late that it's a mess. But there's a guest bath, so they don't need to go. And the first time they get a tour, and the rest of the time, there's no need for them to ever go because it's the one that's attached to my office. So I like that advice very much. Thank
you. Yeah, that's your hiding closet.
I have 2 huge closets, and I can do a lot of hiding. I can even leave stuff on the floor and they won't see it because nobody goes on that side of my house after the first initial, because there's just no reason. I've worked it out well, even though I'm a pretty neat person, but there's times when I'm in a hurry.
See, that's a strategy.
So yeah, there's another mark for living apart together. Yep, I like it a lot, especially if they really are a messy person. and I like things to be pretty neat. So then they can be messy all the time I'm not there. How nice is that? And I appreciate that they make an effort when I come to throw things in the closet and under the bed, or close the door and go, don't go in that room.
Exactly. I mean, that's the thing about relationships as well, is we often discover each other's patterns and their own ways of being are different from each other. So if you're living apart, you can just maintain some of that difference, and it's okay. Just that when you're together, or when you choose to go to the other person's place, you accommodate that person's difference.
Yeah. They always make a point of telling me they cleaned the bathroom that I'm going to use. Yeah, no hair growing on the shower wall, please.
Actually, a placement, frankly.
For sure.
Yeah.
At least, right?
Right.
Well, if this, hopefully it's been amusing. We've made each other and ourselves laugh a lot on this
Fun. Yeah, absolutely.
topic. And so if you'd like to have more humor about it, you could certainly get a hold of us. And if you're struggling with it or wondering more about it, because it would be something that you thought, I never thought about that, I want to learn more about it, you can contact Barry or I. So a couple of different ways to contact me is if you go back to my website, which is www.theperfectcatch.com, and scroll to the middle of the page, you'll see What's Holding You Back from Love questionnaire. And it has 10 brief questions about where you are now currently and where you'd like to be, and questions that you have for me. And then you'll have a chance to schedule through my online calendar a complimentary conversation with me. And you also are welcome to send me a personal private email at Christine@theperfectcatch.com. And I'm going to say one more thing about my website, because now I have my ebook. So it's at the top. You'll see big letters, ebook, and click on it. And you can download my dating advice ebook. I'm very excited about it. It's hot off the press, whatever that is. I'm very excited. Well, I have to keep up with you, Mr. Author.
Well, what can I say?
So tell people how they can reach you.
So I have my own website, of course, and you can find more information about me if you go to my site, which is barryselby.com. Again, my name is my site, barryselby.com. I have a book I'll get to in a moment, but on the home screen of my website, there are 3 options you can definitely click out. At the top of the screen, there's an invitation to have a conversation with me, similarly to Christine. On my website, just click on the Let's Chat, or Let's Have a Chat, and that'll take you to my calendar, and also lets you fill out a form, so that way I know what you're looking for and what you have questions about, so I can dive in right away with you and get some clarity on where you're going, and you get on my calendar, we have a conversation. At the bottom of the screen, at the bottom of the page rather, is a link to my email list. You can join my email list and be part of my audience, and you'll get replay of the show, other things to talk about, and a lot of new offerings are brewing this year. I've already got 2 things that I've offered my audience, and some new things are happening as well. And in the middle of the screen, I have my quiz. Now, I've just uploaded a new version of the quiz. I've refined it completely. It was a Wizard of Oz theme now. Now it's a much more direct, deep, and really clear delineation. So in the middle of the screen is a link to take the quiz, which is my relationship readiness assessment. And you can go straight to it if you go to barryselby.com/quiz. But basically that will take you to a self-reflection process. So you can basically see where you are and where you want to go. And those questions will give you some the answer you fill out to those questions will give you clarity about where you are. And I'll give you get an email with right up what you need. I have a second quiz that I created, which is really about self-relationship, because I'm really doing a lot of work with clients in that area. So and that isn't available directly in my site, you just go to barryselby.com/self-quiz. And that is a new review of your own relationship with yourself, because frankly, as I said many times, my work is about helping you become a better partner to attract a better partner. So why not look in the mirror and see who you are in your own relationship with yourself? Also, there's a book on my website as well, mentioned, as Christine was mentioning, I'm also an author. So if you go to barryselby.com/book, or you click on it from the navigation bar, you can find my book, which has been out now for 12 years, which is, people love the book. Actually, I was at an event on Tuesday where they're already ordering my book because they want to get a copy, which is really exciting. Yeah, it was fun. That was a fun conversation with a bunch of other authors.
How fun.
But also on the book page, there is a 12-minute book review that I generated. We're using an AI, one of these online AI platforms that basically had created 2 AI voices, male and female, expert book reviewers, who basically did a 12-minute conversation about my book, which is pretty impressive. So if you want to check out my book from a reviewer's point of view, have a listen to the audio that's on that page. You can listen to it right there. And again, on my book is my coaching. Oh, sorry, my site is my coaching, my offerings too. So you can find me wherever you go on my book. And you can also send me an email at barry@barryselby.com and reach out if you need some support. That's what we're both here for.
And we are always here live on Thursdays at 1 o'clock Pacific and 4 o'clock Eastern and all the times in between. And you can watch us on a replay on TV, on Roku. And then you can also take us with you on our podcast, right, Barry?
Absolutely. We are now happily being broadcast on Apple Podcasts, on Google, and I think on Amazon as well. So if you have a favorite, sorry, not Google, on Spotify.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that's the one. If you're an avid listener to podcasts, you can listen to us. You can take us with you wherever you go. I mean, with 220 plus episodes now, you can take a lot of time to listen to all the stuff we're teaching you. So if you're going for a hike for 6 months, take it with you. But if you're driving or going to the store or anything else for that matter, you can listen to us and plug it into your ear and have a listen to our audio version of our show anytime you want. So definitely follow us on our podcast platforms.
And we'd love for you to leave us a review, and share it with your friends that are having a challenge in their dating and relationships.
Absolutely. So
we'll be back next week. We'll look forward to seeing you with another interesting subject. And let's talk dating.
Yeah.
Bye for now.
See ya.